Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Bison Video Blog. A Dakota Marker week has arrived. North Dakota State, South Dakota State, for the 21st time, will play for that 75-pound rock. You ever lifted that up?
I haven't even, it's been so long since I've seen it. I don't even remember what it looks like.
It's true. It's been a little bit.
It's been a while.
2019, the last time North Dakota State won it. It's going to be 1 versus 2, which we'll chat about in a moment for the Bison and the Jackrabbits. National television prime time next Saturday night on ESPN2. The Jackrabbits feel like, to me, that they come into this season knowing full well, okay, their star quarterback is back. They lost a bunch of guys to the NFL. They got handled by Oklahoma State in a game that I thought maybe they'd be more competitive in. And then they scuffle with Incarnate Word. They really struggle with Augie. But since then, Jeff, they have been a machine in rolling over Southeastern Louisiana, Northern Iowa, and Youngstown State.
Well, I think they've almost mirrored the Bison in a way that once they got to conference play, they certainly upped their play a notch. NDSU has certainly upped their play a notch too, especially defensively. But you look at South Dakota State, I feel like this is a program that it equals NDSU in its heyday, because the Bison would lose guys, but then they always had veteran guys coming back, and it felt like the Bison in their 9 titles in 11 years, it was a team that really never got young. They always had veteran guys, and that's a tribute to developing younger players, and then all of a sudden they're ready to play, and boom, they're juniors and making contributions. I kind of feel like South Dakota State's in that same boat right now.
SDSU is 5-1. They've won their last 3 games by a combined 129 points. They have dusted their last 3. And now here's an element to keep an eye on Saturday. Much like the Bison have Cole Payton, who's that secret weapon as their backup quarterback, the Jackrabbits have it in Chase Mason, who you'll see, they were getting direct handoffs to him, number 7. He's the backup quarterback for the Jackrabbits. It's something to keep an eye on for this coming game.
He's the heir apparent at quarterback, and he'll be the guy next year. And actually, Mark Gronowski could come back another year, but obviously it's on to the NFL for him. And plus, he just goes, it's time for this guy to take over next year.
This is the guy you've been worried about, though, is Amar Johnson.
Yeah, the Bison don't have that guy, Dom. They don't. I mean, Marty Brown's been really good this year, but he hasn't broken anything longer than a significant run. Mark Johnson just has that ability to break a 50, 60-yarder that we have not seen yet with the Bison.
That's Mason again scoring a touchdown. Now, the glass half empty guy would say, well, is SDSU throwing everything on tape for NDSU to be worried about? But again, Gronowski can still throw the ball as well. That's what I'm really intrigued about, because the Yankees are gone. Kraft is gone. Hines is gone. Their outstanding offensive linemen, McCormick and Greenfield, they're in the NFL. But just to your point, they've restacked. Griffin Wilde is a beast. You mentioned Amar Johnson. Angel Johnson returned the opening kickoff for a touchdown. These guys are loaded in several spots.
Yeah, they got athletes. And I think when Tim Paulsik in his first year going forward, and he knows this, and we talked about it on your show this morning, he knows this. They got to find some more athletic guys at certain spots. And they just don't have it right now, where I think the Jacks do. I mean, you talk about Amar Johnson, he's a senior. He's been around. I mean, this guy is not in his first year of taking carries. I don't think the Dome's going to phase guys like Amar Johnson. They're not going to. It's not going to phase guys like Mark Gronowski. The Bison just got to flat out come play and out muscle them in some certain spots and make plays. I mean, it's been the Jacks in the last 5 years who have made the plays, not NDSU.
You go back even to that spring game of 21. Gronowski was the one making plays with his legs. That's how the Jackrabbits came in here and beat the Bison in that game. And I'll go, you mentioned just returning guys and having that next line. Look at the running backs they've had, right? Because Pierre Strong was the guy, like, holy
NFL.
cow, how are they going to stop him? Then Isaiah Davis was next up. How are they going to stop him? Now here's Amar Johnson, who's next. And we saw him 2 years ago up here at the Dome have his really coming out party.
It was like his first game that we got, okay, who is this guy?
Right, and then he did it again in the national championship game down in Frisco. That's the kind of run they've had at that particular position. Tight end is another one, where they've had Dallas Goedert be the guy, okay? Then Tucker Kraft came along, then Zach Hines. I mean, it's been amazing at that spot. Graham Goring's the next one.
Yeah, depth. It's the hallmark of a championship team is depth. You have guys who are willing to wait their turn, too, and that's the thing, too. And, we were talking, and how do you get depth? We were talking with John Stiegelmeier when he was a head coach at one of our pregame shows. It was down at South Dakota State. We were inside the stadium. And he goes, and then it's just opened up, too, with Dyke House Stadium. And he goes, he's pointing to the indoor facility, is much more important than this. Meaning, when it comes to recruiting, you have to have that indoor facility to really, I think, get the next level of guys. Well, now NDSU responded. Now they have a beautiful indoor facility, and I would expect, and I think accordingly, you're going to be able to get some athletes with those type of facilities. And with a collective. The collective is really coming along too.
As well. I think I ask you this every year, but I'll ask you maybe a different way. When in your mind did the Dakota Marker become a thing? Like, it was contrived rivalry to start. It was neat they played for it. The Bison won it in 06 to win the championship. The Jacks denied him the perfect season the following year in 07. But when in your mind did it become, okay, this is a thing that people care about?
I think it was 07. It was the last regular season game. NDSU went into that game unbeaten, and there was talk, because they were ineligible for the FCS playoffs, that if they run the table and go unbeaten, that they could somehow get into an FBS bowl game somewhere. There was talk of that. Well, then South Dakota State ruined that down in Brookings at Old Coughlin Alumni Stadium. To me, that response and that reaction was, okay, it was started out as a forced trophy. I mean, I'll never forget it. We've talked about it a million times. Down in the farm on the border of North Dakota, South Dakota, George Knutson's farm. And, you know, they got together and they came up with this trophy, which obviously it's cool because they were actual markers.
Correct.
It wasn't like picking a bird out of the sky.
The physical landscape of it, yes.
Yeah, so, I mean, that was cool that those two student groups came up with that, but it was forced to start. But I think 07, that game
changed everything.
Started.
I think 19 is another one. When College Game Day came to Brookings to acknowledge not only what North Dakota State had done, but here comes South Dakota State, I think it hit another level, and I think it will again this weekend. Now, Jeff, it's national television, prime time, 7 o'clock Saturday night inside the Fargo Dome. Here's another era, and we said this on our podcast last week. If you're the Mountain West Conference, come on out to the Fargo Dome. If you want looking for two members, you're not going to get a better example for that on Saturday night.
You and I are both college football junkies, and how many times over the last several years have we gone on and watched FBS games, not the Power 5, but Group of 5, and then you see what's in the stands or lack thereof, more importantly.
Yep.
You know, the UTEP game last week, and I hate to hammer on UTEP, but I really don't hate to hammer on UTEP. You know, there was nobody there. No. There was nobody there. You know, all those MAC games over the years, MACtion, there's never anybody there. There's going to be people there. Yes. It's going to be packed. Yep. It's a hard ticket to get. It makes for good TV on a nationwide scope. You guys do a better job, by the way.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, but you're just unfortunately not national.
We'll sit this one out this week.
Yep. But take it for the team. Yeah, exactly. Yep. So, but I think this will be, again, for these Mountain West teams that are looking for programs. Why wouldn't you want this?
Oh, this is what you want. This is what you sign up for.
And South Dakota State's selling out, too.
Yep. Cam Miller said he was 75, 80%. The Bison would love to have him at 100. I don't think they're going to get that. What's he need to be at for NDSU to win the football game?
Well, I don't want to give a number, but you know, anything less than 100% is not a good sign, I think, for NDSU. If it takes away a portion of his quarterback run game, that's huge. NDSU needs everything on the table to pull this game off. And if their quarterback is not able to use that part of his game, I think that's a red flag for sure.
Something to find out. Well, Tim Polisic has his press conference tomorrow. 3 Bison's defensive starters left the game Saturday against Southern Illinois, the most notable being Dylan Hendricks, who was seen with a huge brace on his left knee. That's a monster blow if he can't play on Saturday.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel like he's going to play Saturday, if at all, this season.
Yeah, that's tough.
Maybe we'll find out more. But I think equally as important is middle linebacker Nick Kubitz. He's really upped his game the last couple of weeks. Once conference play has started, he's assumed that role full time. And I think he's been really good, playing some of the best of his career. And if he's not there, then you got Adam Bach, who's the first team All-American on the other side at middle linebacker. You just can't keep taking hits to those positions.
No, that's a huge drop off there. We talked about up the middle where the Bison have been better this season with Sam Young now moving to spots. Kubitz's been really good. And I'll say this, Eli Mostard is playing like a first-team All-American. At least the last 3 weeks, we have seen that out of the Bison.
And I think Toby, they're going to need him for sure. And Toby Adneni, I think, has shown some pretty good stuff at defensive end. But doesn't it feel, Dom, like the Jacks are a real decided favorite right now? When you consider the Bison injuries, you consider the history of the Dakota Marker series, I don't think they're going to be intimidated coming in to the Fargo Dome. It'll make a difference.
Yep.
It could make a difference, but I don't think they'll be intimidated. I just feel like they're a definitive favorite.
Okay, so if you're a betting favorite, so you're saying SDSU
I don't know. I'm no
minus,
Vegas guy.
minus,
6.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, 5, 4.
I would say around there, 4 or 5 point favorite right now on Monday. Let's find out what the injury status is, and that might change when we get the lines come out on Friday about where it's at. But everything you said is SDSU has that in its favor. The Bison
They have the better running back. They have the better middle linebacker.
And here's the thing I talk about, and we got to go with McFeely about this. If the Bison don't get them now, when are they going to get them?
Yeah,
this is
year,
like the most gettable they've been over the last couple of years.
We think the winner of this game, if things play out, the winner of this game is in line to really host a deep run into the playoffs. The loser, and if that's NDSU, you're going to go somewhere. South Dakota,
You're
South
going to
Dakota
have to
State.
travel for your semifinal.
Yeah.
I would say that if you lose this game, you're likely a 3 or a 4. If you win, you could be the 1 or the 2.
Assuming you win out.
Correct. Too. South Dakota is going to be heard from
Yes.
in this conversation. I know there are
they've
Coyote
been killing
fans that watch
teams
us.
too.
South Dakota will be heard from before the end of the regular season. Don't forget, the game is on Saturday, ESPN2, 7 o'clock. We'll be with you for Bison Game Day, though, at 10 a.m. on WDAY. We'll also have another streaming show for you at 5:30 on WDAY Plus at Inforum.com to get you ready for the 21st edition of the Dakota Marker game between the Bison and the Jackrabbits. For Jeff Kolpack, I'm Dom Izzo. That's this week's Bison Video Blog.